My name is Maya Chen, and for 2 years, I've been living a double life at Sterling Financial Group. Not the kind involving espionage or crime, but something that proved just as dramatic in the end. Being both the office cleaning lady and one of the firm's most successful portfolio managers. The only one client knew the truth until today. I still remember my first day at Sterling Financial, clutching my MBA from Stanford and years of investment experience, ready to make my mark. But Robert Sterling, the CEO, barely glanced at my resume before looking me up and down, his lips curling slightly. "We do have an opening," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "In our maintenance department, someone to keep things tidy, organize files, maybe water the plants. Would that interest you?" I knew what he was doing. I'd seen that look before. The dismissive once over, the assumption that someone who looked like me, a young Asian woman in a modest suit, couldn't possibly be qualified for anything more. I'd faced this prejudice throughout my career, watching less qualified candidates get promoted while I was passed over. But this time was different. This time, I had a plan. "Yes, Mr. Sterling," I said quietly, keeping my eyes downcast. "That would be perfect, thank you." He smiled, satisfied with my submission. "Good, you start Monday. Janet in HR will handle the paperwork." What Robert Sterling didn't know was that I had already been managing million-dollar portfolios for years through my own private investment consulting business. One of my biggest clients, Michael Zhang, happened to be looking to move his $50 million portfolio to a major firm. When I told him about Sterling Financial's reputation and their obvious blind spots, he understood immediately what I was planning. "They won't see you coming," he chuckled during our private meeting that weekend. Just like all the others did it. So I became Linda for maintenance, keeping my head down, speaking broken English when anyone bothered to talk to me, and learning everything about how Sterling Financial really operated. I arrived early each morning, emptying trash bins while senior analysts bragged loudly about their strategies. I organized files while overhearing which clients were unhappy, which portfolios were struggling, and which managers were cooking their numbers. The invisible woman sees everything. Meanwhile, Michael Zhang transferred his portfolio to Sterling Financial, but with a condition. He would only work with an analyst of his choosing, one who would remain anonymous to everyone except the compliance department. Sterling, eager for the massive account, agreed. For 2 years, I lived this dual life. During the day, I was Linda the cleaner, ignored and overlooked. But from my tiny basement office, officially a maintenance closet, I managed Michael's portfolio to record breaking returns. The compliance department, bound by confidentiality, were the only ones who knew my real role, and they were too afraid of losing Michael's business to say anything. I watched as other analysts tried to figure out who was handling the mysterious Zhang account. I listened to their theories during lunch breaks while I quietly swept the floor around them. The portfolio's performance was outstanding, 28% returns in a down market, and nobody could understand how. Robert Sterling became obsessed with discovering the identity of his star performer, especially after Michael began referring other wealthy clients to this unnamed analyst. But all these new clients had the same requirement. They would only work with the anonymous portfolio manager who handled the Zhang account. Within 2 years, I was secretly managing over $200 million in assets, generating millions in fees for the firm. My real analyst's office was a converted supply closet in the basement, where I met with my clients after hours or handled everything through secure digital channels. My clients, all wealthy Asian entrepreneurs who faced similar discrimination, loved the irony of the situation. But it was getting harder to maintain the charade. Sterling was becoming increasingly frustrated with his inability to identify and control his most successful analysts. He wanted to feature them in marketing materials, have them speak at conferences, parade them in front of potential clients. Then came the day everything changed. Michael Zhang decided to visit the office in person, insisting on a meeting with Sterling and all his top executives. He said he was considering doubling his investment but wanted to discuss the firm's overall strategy first. Sterling pulled out all the stops. The conference room was prepared meticulously with expensive catering and elaborate presentations. I was there too, in my maintenance uniform, quietly arranging water glasses and trying not to smile. "Linda," Sterling barked as the meeting was about to begin. "Make sure you stay close by during the meeting. We'll need coffee service and cleanup." "Yes, sir," I murmured, keeping my eyes down. "I stay." The executives filed in, followed by Michael Zhang himself. He caught my eye briefly but showed no sign of recognition. Perfect. Sterling launched into his presentation, boasting about the firm's stellar performance and exceptional talent. He was just getting to the part about their rigorous analyst selection process when Michael interrupted. Actually, I'm mainly here to finally meet my portfolio manager in person. I understand they're here today. Sterling's face reddened slightly. Ah, yes, that's a bit complicated. You see, that analyst prefers to remain anonymous. Nonsense, Michael said firmly. I've made my expectations clear. Either I meet them today or I begin transferring my accounts elsewhere tomorrow morning. The room fell silent. Sterling tugged at his collar, looking desperate. I assure you, we can arrange something. That's when I decided it was time. I had been quietly pouring coffee, but now I straightened up and spoke in my normal voice. Clear, educated, accent-free English. Hello, Michael. It's good to finally meet in the office. The executives' heads whipped around so fast I thought they might get whiplash. Sterling's face went from red to white in an instant. Linda, he choked out. What are you doing? My name isn't Linda, I said calmly, placing the coffee pot down. It's Maya Chen. I hold an MBA from Stanford with 15 years of investment experience. I'm also the analyst who's been managing Michael's portfolio for the past 2 years. From my office in the basement supply closet. The silence that followed was deafening. Sterling's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. One of the junior executives actually dropped his pen. Michael stood up, straightening his tie. I think he said with a slight smile, this would be a good time to discuss Maya's promotion to senior portfolio manager, and perhaps a proper office. But Sterling wasn't going down without a fight. His face had turned an interesting shade of purple as he found his voice again. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. She's the cleaning lady. She's been lying to us all this time. This is fraud. I pulled out a folder I'd been carrying in my maintenance cart and placed it on the table. Actually, I said, my voice still calm, every single document, trade, and communication has been properly filed with compliance. My real credentials and identity have been on record since day one. You just never bothered to check. You saw what you expected to see, just a cleaning lady. I opened the folder, revealing 2 years' worth of performance reports, client communications, and trading records. I never lied about who I was, Mr. Sterling. You just never asked. You were too busy making assumptions. The color drained from Sterling's face as he realized the truth. Every trade, every client meeting, every record-breaking return. It had all been completely legitimate. He had given one of his most successful analysts a broom closet for an office, simply because he couldn't see past his own prejudices. But I wasn't finished. I had one more card to play, one that would ensure Sterling could never sweep this under the rug. And there's something else you should know. I pulled out another folder, this one containing emails, photographs, and detailed notes spanning my 2 years at Sterling Financial. Being invisible has its advantages, Mr. Sterling. People say and do all sorts of things when they think no one important is watching. Like when you ordered junior analysts to backdate trading records last quarter, or when you discussed using client funds to cover personal expenses with your brother in accounting. Sterling's face, already pale, turned ashen. The other executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. That's not, Sterling began, but I cut him off. Or perhaps we should discuss the real reason the Thompson account lost $2 million last month. The unauthorized trades you made trying to cover your gambling debts? The room erupted in chaos. Several executives started whispering furiously among themselves. Michael Zhang sat back, watching it all with quiet satisfaction. You've been spying on me. Sterling finally managed to sputter. I shook my head. No, Mr. Sterling. I've been doing my job, protecting client interests and maintaining accurate records. It's amazing what you can see when cleaning the office after hours. Like shredded documents that shouldn't have been shredded or late-night meetings that shouldn't have happened. I turned to address the other executives directly. Everything is documented and copies have been filed with the SEC and the firm's board of directors. I submitted the report this morning. One of the senior partners, David Chen, no relation, cleared his throat. Robert, is this true? The Thompson account. Sterling jumped up, his chair screeching against the floor. You can't prove anything. Who's going to believe some cleaning lady over me? Actually, Michael Zhang interjected smoothly. They'll believe her because I've been working with the SEC for the past year. Maya's documentation provides the final evidence they needed. The only reason they haven't stormed in here yet is because I asked for an hour to handle my personal business first. He checked his watch. They should be arriving in about 10 minutes. The door burst open and Janet from HR rushed in, looking flustered. Mr. Sterling. There are SEC agents in the lobby. Sterling lunged for the door, but two of the senior partners blocked his way. Years of pent-up suspicions about their CEO had just been confirmed, and they weren't about to let him flee. Sit down, Robert, David Chen said firmly. We're going to handle this properly. The next hour was a blur of SEC agents, formal statements, and shocked employees gathering in the hallways as word spread. Sterling was led out in handcuffs, still shouting about betrayal and conspiracies. I stood in the conference room, finally removing my maintenance uniform to reveal the professional suit I wore underneath. Michael Zhang approached me with a smile. Perfect timing as always, Maya. Though I admit, even I didn't know about Sterling's embezzlement. I had to keep some surprises, I replied, even for my favorite client. The board of directors convened an emergency meeting that afternoon. I was asked to present everything I had discovered during my 2 years of invisible observation. The pattern of corruption and mismanagement went deeper than anyone had suspected. By evening, the news had hit the financial press. The headlines were savage. CEO exposed by cleaning lady who was actually top portfolio manager, Sterling financial shakeup. The analyst in the basement, Wall Street's best-kept secret, the million-dollar janitor. The firm's damage control was swift and comprehensive. Sterling and his collaborators were out, and the board announced a major restructuring. They also made me an offer, executive vice president of asset management, with a corner office and a 7-figure salary. I countered with my own terms. Yes to the position and the office, but I also wanted complete autonomy in building my own team. And most importantly, I wanted to start a mentorship program for overlooked talent in the financial industry. Talent doesn't always come in the package people expect, I told the board. Sometimes the next financial genius is being passed over because they don't fit someone's preconception of what success looks like. They agreed to everything. The day I moved into my new office, I made sure to bring something special from my basement office, the cleaning cart. I parked it right next to my expensive new desk as a reminder. Janet from HR stopped by, still looking slightly sheepish about her role in maintaining my Linda cover story. The custodial staff is wondering if you want them to remove that, she said, gesturing to the cart. No, I replied, it stays. It's a good reminder that every job has dignity, and that looking down on anyone is a mistake you might regret. She nodded, understanding. The new mentorship program has already received over 200 applications. Apparently, your story struck a chord. Good, I said, because that's the real reason I did all this. Not to expose Sterling, not for revenge, but to prove a point. Talent and integrity matter more than appearances. Michael Zhang became our biggest cheerleader, actively recruiting other clients who appreciated our new approach to talent and management. Within 6 months, our assets under management had doubled. The cleaning cart still sits in my office. New employees often ask about it, and I tell them the story. Not just about how I exposed a corrupt CEO, but about how easy it is to overlook brilliance when it doesn't fit our expectations. Sometimes interns or junior analysts stop by my office, especially the ones who feel out of place in the white male-dominated world of finance. They see me, an Asian woman who went from the basement to the executive floor, and realize that anything is possible. The key, I tell them, is to know your worth, even when others don't see it. Success isn't about fitting into someone else's box. It's about being so good they can't ignore you, even if you're holding a mop. Last week, I interviewed a promising candidate for our analyst program. She was brilliant but nervous, clearly worried that her background, daughter of immigrants, state school education, wasn't prestigious enough. I pointed to the cleaning cart. Want to hear a story? Her eyes lit up. She'd read about me, of course. My story had become something of a legend in financial circles, but hearing it firsthand was different. The moral, I told her, isn't about deception or revenge. It's about perseverance, about knowing your worth even when others don't see it. Sterling's crime wasn't just financial fraud, it was wasting talent because of his own prejudices. I hired her, of course. She's now managing a small portfolio and showing incredible promise, just like dozens of others we've hired based on talent rather than pedigree. Sterling? He took a plea deal and is serving time for financial fraud. His brother and several other executives also face charges. The firm, now renamed Heritage Asset Management, has become known for its diverse workforce and innovative approach to finding talent. As for me, I keep that maintenance uniform in my office closet, right next to my Harvard MBA diploma and the Wall Street Journal article about the $1 million janitor. They're all part of who I am, reminders that success stories don't always follow the expected script. Sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the one nobody notices. Sometimes, the person with the mop knows more than the person behind the desk. And sometimes, the best way to change a broken system is to let them underestimate you, right up until the moment they can't ignore you anymore. The cleaning cart stays in my office as a reminder: never judge someone by their appearance or their job title. Because you never know, that cleaning lady you just ignored might actually be managing your millions. And if there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that true power isn't about having the biggest office or the fanciest title. It's about staying true to yourself and using your success to open doors for others. After all, the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's changing the system so nobody else has to go through what you did. That's why I keep the cart. That's why I tell my story. And that's why, every time someone asks me how I did it, I tell them the truth. Sometimes the best way to clean up a corrupt system is to start from the bottom up.